Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Root of the Matter podcast. I am your host, Dr. Rachaele Carver, and I'm very excited today. We have Tobias Siegel, who is the CEO of Promo Lights. I'm a big fan of their products. He's going to talk to us today all about ozone and what it is, how we use it, a little bit of that history, right? Some's going to debunk some of the myths about ozone and so let's just dive right in. Tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got into the field of ozone.
Thanks so much, Dr. Carver, for having me today. I got into this because my parents had some health problems a while back. My dad actually started the company. He was the one, it was crazy. He was into ozone like in the 90s. And so like he was aware of it, knew what it was. And then like the early 2000s, like really started getting into it for health purposes. Noticed a huge benefit. Literally saw him go from like having chronic fatigue, candida issues to essentially reversing that and really changing course with his lifestyle. So you see that and it, kind of starts to propel and you figure out what there's actually something to this. And so he ended up starting the company back in 2000. And then really what we decided to do was we wanted to really refine the product line to, really develop it more. There's really a need for more of a better education, easier to use products. There were a lot of ozone companies out there. They were selling equipment. There needed to be a different approach as far as getting this out there to the masses and usability. And so I got to step in after I graduated from college, and we really started redefining the product line, working on it and making it so that it was really easy for clinics to use, dental offices to use, and even home users to use as well. And that's a whole cool aspect of ozone therapy is a lot of the stuff that you can actually do at home without the presence of anybody. So it's a really cool therapy, and I'm happy to answer questions, go into the history, how it works, all that fun stuff.
Awesome. Yeah. And I think, when I first learned about ozone, it was back in 2015. And I just thought, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is just going to take my practice, to the next level. And I find that it is absolutely amazing, especially, if you have a hot tooth or, a tooth that I'm trying desperately to prevent it from needing that root canal, or
Yep.
extraction. But at the same time, like they can't take my machine home with them, right? Because the thing about ozone is great, but because it's natural, right? And it's unlike a drug, right? We're not stopping a reaction or blocking something. We're actually stimulating the body's own healing process. And that's
Yes.
why there's very, really no side effects, no contraindication. But in saying that, like we need to keep doing it, right? And so I love what you've done by making it accessible to the home user and affordable
Yes.
too, because maybe it's $1,200 or whatever, but what you get for that amount of money, it's unparalleled. And so that is really exciting to me that your company is really allowing this to be something that everybody should have. I tell everybody, right? Everybody needs to have a jar of that ozonated olive oil. That should be in your first aid kit. Throw away the
Oh yeah.
Neosporin, right? Have to have that and my little red lights. Those are two of my absolute favorite modalities that I feel like every person should have. Tell us a little bit about maybe the history of ozone. I think a lot of people think about it being in the atmosphere, but they don't realize it's been around since the early 1900s, right? This is what we
Yeah.
originally used to clean water facilities, right?
It's been around since the 1800s. And I mean, it was really pioneered by Nikola Tesla back in the day. They started using it in World War I to treat trench foot. So it was actually used medically as far back as like the early 90s. And then something happened in the 1930s. You had the AMA take hold and they really put a limitation on it. But that really, more so put a limitation in the United States. Germany was still doing it. It really started picking back up in like the 50s and 60s in Europe. And then, as it propelled, it came back to the United States more. I mean, they were always doing it in the United States, but it was really, really low key. I would say once like the 80s and the 90s hit, you started seeing more clinics pop up. You have doctors like Frank Schellenberger who have really pushed it forward, Dr. Robert Rowan. So you have these individuals who have really trained a lot of doctors. And so you're seeing thousands of clinics all around the country now, right now, thousands of dental offices, and just a lot of people really asking for ozone, wanting to get into it. And so the history is there. It's been around for a long time. And then I do like to point out that a lot of people, there is some misconceptions about ozone. People think ozone is a toxic substance. That is not correct. It is considered an irritant. We are using low concentrations of ozone gas when we perform these therapies. And then for people who are concerned about ozone even more, I want to point out that if you drink bottled water, every single bottled water is purified with ozone. Ozone is so entrenched in our daily lives that we don't even realize it. It's not something that's going to negatively affect the atmosphere. We use it for sterilization. There's probably 50 other uses that we use ozone for on a daily basis that people don't realize. But it's around, it's here to stay. It's not going to go anywhere. We're seeing a lot more clinics popping up, a lot more dental offices getting into it. I was just at a dental training this past weekend. We had about 30 doctors there looking to get into ozone. So, it's exciting. We're seeing it move forward. And I think that honestly, every office should have some form of ozone to offer because it's just the right thing to do.
And interesting, some people have, well, it's not FDA approved, but dentistry, it was kind of grandfathered in. We are allowed to use it. And do you know the history of like how did it get started used in dentistry? Does that go back to those times as well?
So this is what I say about that. You're a biological dentist, there's a lot of things that even traditional dentists use that's not AMA approved. Okay. Ozone's incredibly safe. It's not going to hurt anybody. You guys are using it for the purpose of sterilization because it's effective. And so if we went by everything the AMA, there'd be a lot of things that we wouldn't be able to use. And so, like as a biological dentist or a wellness dentist, you're able to, take these cool modalities and try them out on patients to see how they work. Like one of the things that I see so much going to these dental trainings is we incorporate ozone, we incorporate lasers, we incorporate PRF, and all these things have this phenomenal synergistic approach to the patient. And it really excels the healing and the outcome of the patient. Like one of the big takeaways that I get when talking to dental office is when they incorporate ozone, the big thing that they notice is a reduction of antibiotics they have to prescribe to the patient. To me, that's a big deal because a lot of people are obviously wanting to avoid antibiotics if there's going to be cases where they have to take them. But if you can have a better outcome with the surgery and avoid that, that's fantastic.
I mean, that's one of the things I love about it. I do a lot of extraction. And even in the highly infected teeth that we're taking out, without my ozone, without, the PRF and laser, like you just mentioned, those three, that synergistic effect, I cannot remember the last time I gave antibiotics. I cannot remember the last time I gave opioid. My patients walk out the door with arnica. It's a homeopathic,
Awesome.
I think people don't realize, they say, oh my gosh, ozone, this oxidant. People don't realize if you saw the side effects of Tylenol, I mean, it covers pages and pages, right? But people don't think about it because, well, we give it to our kids. We take it, we don't even think about that. But ozone is much safer than Tylenol. I mean, again,
It
people
is.
don't realize it's a natural substance, right? So what we were saying right before we started recording, right, is that ozone is unlike a drug. We are stimulating the body to heal itself, right? So maybe let's talk a little bit about how that, because I've had a patient say to me before, but ozone's an oxidant and aren't oxidants so bad for us? Like, no, because, and this is where we go wrong sometimes immediate, right? And then when you overdo the antioxidants, you suppress a lot of natural body functions, right? So tell us
Yes.
a little bit about, what does it mean? You can do the simplified version of what does it mean to be an oxidant?
Absolutely. So 100% correct. Your body needs a balanced approach of both antioxidants and oxidants. For people who don't realize, oxidants are what fights off viruses and infections in the body. So like when we talk about free radicals, everybody's like, oh, free radicals are bad. That's what causes aging. Yes, but if you don't have your free radicals, you're gonna you're gonna be severely affected if you catch like the common cold or something like that. So we don't want to have too many free radicals, but we also don't want to have too many antioxidants. So what ozone really does, and amazing, is it does put the body under very, very mild form of oxidative stress, and that allows your body to actually naturally produce antioxidants. So what it's really doing is it's balancing out your antioxidant level and balancing out your oxidant level in your body to a healthy amount. And that really puts your body in a really good spot to help fight off these infections that you're dealing with. Another way I like to look at it is ozone to me is almost like a terrain modifier. So what it's basically doing, like a good example that I like to use is everybody asks me, well, if it's an oxidant and it's killing the bacteria? Is it also killing the good bacteria? Yes, and it technically is, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, because the way I look at it is, they say 80% of Americans have some form of gum disease. So we have an oversupply of bad bacteria in our mouth. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to reset that. So if we can reset that bacteria, and ozone has been shown to neutralize the pH levels in your mouth, and it actually sets your mouth up for your good bacteria to thrive much more effectively. So overall, what ozone's doing is it's balancing out your terrain, and it's restabilizing your body, so your body now can repopulate the good bacteria and really get yourself on a good foot and hopefully heal itself much more effectively.
Exactly, without the side effects of like an antibiotic, right?
Exactly.
Typically, we used to, test oral bacteria. We'd say, oh, yeah, we got all the red complex, really bad guys. We're just going to nuke them with the antibiotic. Well, we all know now that overuse of antibiotics has created a lot of problems, right?
Yeah,
And when you take an antibiotic, it's specific to only one subset of bacteria. So you still
exactly.
might have these other ones, whereas ozone kind of indiscriminate there. So can you describe, like, so we're taught when we take ozone classes, right, that ozone can kill viruses, parasites, fungus, bacteria, all kind of on contact. So since we're talking about that oxidation, what is the mechanism for ozone to work, and why would it not have any side effects?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So it's incredibly simple how it works. So ozone's a negatively charged particle. And so you have viruses that are all positively charged. Then you do have bacteria that are some are negatively charged, some are positively charged. And most of the bad bacteria that we run into carry a positive charge. And so with ozone being a negatively charged particle, it's going to essentially actively seek out and destroy that stuff that's causing it issues. When ozone comes in contact with bacteria, it destroys the cell wall, basically rendering it completely dead, and it cannot develop any resistance whatsoever to ozone. When it comes in contact with the virus, it strips away an electron. And basically, you can't really kill a virus, you can deactivate viruses. And so that's what it does pretty much on contact. So, like a good example, if we're looking at viruses, a lot of viruses have spikes on the outside. When you neutralize a virus, basically just causes the spikes to fall off. And so once that happens, the virus can no longer replicate or do any damage to the body. So ozone is very fast acting. If you compare it to like other sterilizing agents out there, it works like 3,000 times faster. And the cool thing is it's incredibly safe on the body. Your body naturally produces a small amount of ozone gas through the white blood cells. So for people who are concerned that ozone is this foreign, gas that we're entering into the body, our body already knows what to do with it. I mean, it's incredibly used to it because we produce it, daily. It's how our body naturally fights off infections. So we're providing our body with a secondary source of what it already produces. It knows what to do with it, and it very easily can resolve some of these issues with it.
Absolutely. And that extra lock, so when we're talking about ozone, right, it's three atoms of oxygen versus two, which is normal, oxygen. We think of O2. And so that extra electron, the other thing I really love about ozone, when somebody has a tooth that's irritated, and, we call it a hot tooth, or, inflamed, and we want to try to avoid the root canal or extraction. Anytime I think of pain in the body, it's like there's not enough energy flowing, right? There's not
Yep.
enough electron. And this is where ozone is so amazing. Not only do I use it with my extractions and helping to sterilize, but I'm also using it as a way to boost the body's energy, because that extra
Yes.
electron is so vital to creating energy. I mean, if we think about, I was listening to this really interesting podcast yesterday with Dave Asprey and Zach Bush, and they were just talking about, the generations that we just have less energy in general, right? So, the infertility and all the problems that we have, our mitochondria just are lacking these electrons, right? So
Yep.
again, in thinking about, pain, there's always a lack of energy and a lack of the energy flow. So ozone is so amazing about pumping those electrons into the body to restart that flow of energy. So then again, the body heals itself. So anytime you use a modality where the body is healing itself, this where light energy is great too, right? Like you just said, you're adding in a substance that the body already uses, right? So you're just giving it a little boost up because it's so bogged down by the toxic world we live in. We're trying to put back into, as you said, heal the terrain.
Yeah.
Right.
It's super cool. I mean, and just even diving in more in what ozone is. I mean, literally, we're taking pure oxygen to we want to use a very pure form because we don't want any other contaminants. And all we're doing is we're electrically charging that oxygen and that's it. And so we're essentially adding energy to oxygen and then putting it into the body. And so our body really knows exactly what to do with it. I mean, we're essentially just adding energy back into the body. For people who have never tried it, for people who have started to try it, like first off, they notice an increase of energy. They feel more mentally clear. They just overall have better, I feel like it helps people kind of move faster and recover faster and just overall just, boost of energy.
Absolutely. One of my favorite people in the world was my dental rep from Benco, and he struggled with some health issues, and he was super young. It was frustrating, and he ended up getting a machine at home and started doing the rectal insufflation at home, which is super easy. I know it sounds
Yeah.
scary and everything, but man, that tube is super small and it is super easy. And he's been, free of disease for years now. When he struggled kept coming back. And so, I mean, it's just amazing. That stuff kind of speaks for itself. The other
It
thing I
does.
really love about ozone is, so we say that O3, because it's pretty unstable, right? That extra electron makes it, very volatile or whatever. As soon as that hits the body, can you tell us what are the other molecules that are made as soon as that ozone hits human tissue?
Yeah. So, ozone is highly unstable. Just like you said, it has a half-life of about 20 minutes. That's in air. When it enters the body, what's happening is it's generating ozonides and peroxides. And so there's a lot of other oxidative compounds that are produced. But overall, it's going into our body, and our body is using that as a form of oxidative medicine to essentially eliminate pathogens within the body. There's a lot of compounds that we probably don't know 100% what are produced, but we know that it works. And so, it's just a very simplistic form of therapy that has been around for a very long time. I like to tell people how safe ozone is. Like one of the big questions that I get when we talk about ozone gas, especially in dentistry and even medicine is, a lot of times what we'll do is you'll take, a syringe of ozone gas and you'll actually inject it around that tooth. And then the thing that people say to me right off the bat is like, oh, you can't do that. You can't put a gas near a blood vessel. That's going to cause an embolism. And the thing that I always say is, well, you're actually incorrect because what causes the embolism is the nitrogen. When we generate ozone through the use of a pure oxygen source, it's all void of nitrogen. So it's only going to be a mixture of ozone and oxygen, and that's it. And our body has the ability to absorb oxygen and ozone incredibly rapidly in the blood, and it gets distributed very, very quickly throughout the body. It's been around for so long. There's ozone treatments where they pull out the blood, they ozonate it, they put it back in. This is very commonly done. When we look at the side effects associated with ozone, there's really nothing. I mean, it's virtually non-existent. And that's because like we talked about earlier, our body already knows what to do with it. I just see ozone growing. In my opinion, I see that people are having a really good success with it. And so there's really no reason for it to slow down, especially with virtually nobody reporting any adverse reactions. And to me, that's like the big win because we know if there was adverse reactions with ozone, it would not be around anymore because there was absolutely no way it would be in existence. But the fact that we have so few adverse reactions with it tells me that this is here to stay. And there's really, if there's no adverse reactions, there's nothing they can do to like the government can't just like stop something like that if nobody's getting hurt. Like I understand if people are getting hurt,
Try.
that's where they step in. But with the lack of that happening, it's turning into this fantastic therapy for people to try.
Absolutely. And, thinking about all the latest and whatever, virus is going to come into the atmosphere at whatever time, these are, again, very safe and effective therapies to radically boost your own immune system and at the same time, right, getting rid of all these things. The other thing I love that it does is it produces nitric oxide in the body. And nitric oxide is that molecule that helps our blood vessels dilate. And after 40, we're not making as much of that endogenous nitric oxide in our blood vessel. Again, why we get sluggishness and fatigue, more blood clotting and stuff like that. So this is why I also think it works so great when I'm doing my extractions and healing, because, I think traditionally in surgery we tell patients, oh, use ice, so you don't get swelling. And that blocks all the blood flow. So sure,
Yep.
you don't have any swelling, but it takes a lot longer for the body to heal. So in my case, it's like, I don't use epinephrine in my anesthetic because that also stops the blood. I always use a ton of ozone right after, inside the socket, all around that area, because I want increased blood flow. I think that's why I have very few instances of any post-op discomfort. We're making sure that blood is flowing all the time. We're flooding it with lots and lots of oxygen. And it's just amazing. It's absolutely amazing. You're using you're using the patient's own, blood cells to help them heal. And then again, enhancing it with the ozone, which I think is exciting.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the different ways we can use ozone, because there's, we can inject it as a gas, right? We can make ozonated water. You mentioned that the therapy called major autochemotherapy. This is amazing, especially people who are suffering from like chronic fatigue, right?
Yes.
And chronic fatigue to me is like, we don't really know what's wrong with you. We're just going to throw you in that bucket, where it's really just your mitochondria. You can't make energy. And usually it's because your mitochondria is so bogged down by infections and toxins, right?
Yeah.
So the ozone is really effective. Like I said, you pull out some of the patient's blood. I do this to myself at least once a month. And we add it to a bag of saline, then add the ozone in. I run mine through a UV vid machine and then back into the body. So when we're
Yeah.
doing that kind of therapy, what is the ozone doing to the blood?
I mean, when we're treating the blood, I mean, we're essentially, what's really cool when you look at like if you pull out the blood, it's pretty dark red. Then when you start to add ozone, it really brightens up the blood and really, I think it almost excites the blood more than anything. And so that blood goes back into the body. It's going to have those oxidative compounds attached to it. And then it's going to have that ability to essentially neutralize, bacteria that's bogging you down, viruses. One cool thing that ozone really does, that it works incredibly well, that also helps eliminate biofilm. So biofilm is a big issue with people. It's how, a lot of this bacteria that's giving us issues, it's how it survives. And so ozone has the ability to eat through a lot of that biofilm to essentially get to that bacteria that could be causing, the majority of those issues. And so, if people haven't tried that type of therapy, I definitely recommend, if you have the ability, give it a shot, see how you feel. It will make you feel more energized. It will provide more mental clarity. You'll feel great. Everybody I talk to says they feel amazing. Like my mom had she does these things called EVU treatments periodically, where it's a very similar form of major auto chemotherapy, where they remove the blood, they ozonate it, and they put it back in. And she was dealing with some psoriasis issues, and it really it helped get through that. She said she felt amazing. She's in her 70s right now, and it was just really cool to see her, feel like, she basically said, I feel like so much younger. But it's a cool therapy. I recommend, people to encourage like a medical person that they're seeing to get into it. And honestly, when you go to the dentist, I encourage you as a person who's going to the dentist to ask your dentist about it if they offer it, or to try to encourage them to get into it, because it really will make a big difference, with their practice.
Absolutely. So we have that modality. That's a little, that you definitely have to go to a, practitioner.
You do. Yes, you do.
So, but what about, let's say you buy a home unit, and what are the things that you can do at home with an ozone machine?
So home ozone is really cool. And I definitely want to touch on that quite a bit, because I work with a lot of dental offices. And one of the things that they encourage their patients to do is to get a home ozone machine, because they find that there's better outcomes, especially if they're doing, especially if they're removing teeth, or they're doing, adding an implant. So what they're really encouraging the patient to do is to do ozone therapy at home, whether it's making ozone water as a mouth rinse, doing the rectal insufflations, treating ozone gas in the sinuses to help clear out some of that bacteria. But overall, what they're finding is that the patient who does the ozone therapy at home, anytime they do have a surgical procedure, they just have a better outcome. And that makes complete sense to me, because you're essentially stimulating the body to heal faster. To me, like a lot of these dental offices, some of the really, really intense ones that I love to mention, it's part of their protocol. Like if you want to be a patient, you have to commit to this. And I get why they do that, because they want to see the best possible outcome for the patient. Even if you're not going to the dentist, ozone therapy at home is fantastic. If you're dealing with a chronic condition such as Lyme disease, whether it's, a cold, whether it's, some type of viral issue, it's so easy to do. The mechanism of rectal insufflation is really simple. So what we're doing is we're taking a bag, we're adding ozone gas to the bag, and then we're adding an insertion device and pushing that gas into the colon. So if anybody's done an enema with water, this is essentially the same thing, but it's with gas instead. It's not difficult. It takes roughly 5 minutes to do. And then you're done. Yes, you may have to go to the bathroom afterwards, but that's totally normal. But this is a very fast therapy that people can do at home. And it's very, very simple and very, very effective. Like if you're getting sick, that's like my go-to is like you do this kind of stuff and you have now lowered whatever viral loads in your body and you're way less likely to get sick.
Absolutely. All my surgical patients, they go home with a bag of ozonated ice cubes. So we prepare
Nice.
that. So we give them for about 5 days worth so they can, rinse. And they also get the ozonated olive oil. And like patients who are really good about applying that olive oil, like we say, 3, 4, 5 times a day, those heal in like 2 weeks, where
Oh yeah.
typical would be like, I don't know, 8 to 12 weeks, right? I'm blown away still. I've been doing this kind of protocol for years now, and I'm still blown away by the healing. Now, some of the people will say, I hate the taste of that, right? So you can give us some alternatives, right? It's, the straight ozone elbow is kind of chlorine, and so some people think it's just makes them gag or whatever. So tell us about other.
So yeah, so if there's several different ways to use ozone in the mouth. Okay, I'm a big fan of ozone oils because they have the ability to stay adhered better onto the area that you apply because it's an oil-based product. So we do make a product called Tooth and Gum Support. It contains ozonated olive oil and ozonated hemp oil. The reason why we use hemp oil in it is because during the ozonation process, that hemp oil is pretty sticky, and so it allows that oil to adhere really well to like the gums and whatever area you're applying it to. So it stays on there longer. Yes, there is some people aren't crazy about the taste. We do flavor with peppermint and some other stuff. So it makes it a lot more tolerable. There's also ozone water. We have little home ozone water devices that you can flash ozonate your water in. That you can use that as a mouth rinse. We have a new product out that we're starting to see some more people get into. It's pretty brand new it's pretty brand new right now. It's called ozonated glycerin. And then the advantage with that is it actually has a sweet taste to it. So it tastes pretty good. So what we're seeing people do with that now is they're just rubbing it on their gums. What I've done with it is I could actually turn it into a mouth rinse. I've added to some distilled water and some essential oils, and I have a really nice mouthwash with it, and it tastes, sweet. So there's a lot of cool stuff out there that it contains ozone. Ozone oils are phenomenal for applying directly to a surgical site. Ozone water is fantastic as a mouth rinse. Pour it in your water pick. Use that ozonated water through your water pick to clean your teeth. Your teeth will thank you. Ozonated glycerin is something that is pretty tasty, and you can just rub it on your gums. And there's a whole host of other ways that it can also be used. But overall, we're seeing a lot of people getting into ozone right now because it works. If you look at reviews out there, you're going to see people say that it's completely changed my mouth. I started using the Tooth and Gum Support. I've gone to the dentist and they're like, "What did you do to improve, your gum health?" It's amazing. So, I would say ozone is the game changer when it comes to oral health.
Percent. I absolutely love it. And again, going back to the fact that it's really changing that terrain is
It is.
what we really need. Now, can you do ozone too much?
I think you can. I think it's pretty hard to do that. It's something that, it's not going to be something where if you overdose, it's going to be severe to the body. Your body will know if you get too much ozone, you might feel a little overburdened to a point, but you're going to get over it incredibly fast. It's pretty hard to do that too, in my opinion. I mean, really what we're shooting for is, if we're doing treatments on the mouth, we're just rinsing our mouth with ozone water. That works really good. You can't really overdo that at all. Any of the oral health techniques, it's virtually impossible to overdo. Some of the like home therapies like rectal sulfation, we have people who do it like twice a day. And it really boils down to what condition you're trying to treat. If it's maintenance, maybe it's like 2 to 3 times a week. If you do have a severe condition that you're working on getting rid of, it may require you to do ozone therapy once or twice a day. We have great protocols, great videos that teach people how to do everything. And as long as you follow the basic instructions and stay within the parameters of the ozone concentration, you're going to be totally fine. You're not going to have any issues. So they're pretty hard to mess up therapy, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it is very, very easy to use. One thing I wanted to mention was, mold people are having, mold toxicity and major issues now. Mold's been around, since the beginning of time, right? But again, with all the other toxins in the world today, we're seeing it create more toxins within bodies. And when you have a mold overgrowth in the body, that suppresses your immune system, right? So if
Yes.
taking all these antioxidants, right? But you already have mold in your body. This is how cancers and other things can erupt because your immune system is so deadened by this mold, we can't surveil as well. And so this is where with mold toxicity, I think ozone is the game changer because
It
the
is.
ozone is stimulating that immune system. And that's what we oftentimes we think of, we have a cold, we're trying to suppress, where a lot of times, no, we need to boost, right? And
Yes.
that is such an easy effective. What about like nasal insufflation? Right? So we can't breathe ozone directly, right? And why do they say that?
Yeah, and let's go over that because that's a good point. So ozone is amazing pretty much in all parts of the body except two places. You don't want to breathe it, and you really don't want to get the gas in your eyes because it will burn. It's not gonna hurt you. What we're trying to avoid is really taking, in a lot of ozone gas. Our body can tolerate breathing some amount of ozone. It's totally fine. And you'll know when you have too much if you start to cough. Like if you start coughing a little bit, where you notice a little bit of irritation on your throat, you're probably breathing in too much ozone. Our bodies can smell up to 0.05 parts per million of ozone, or we can smell down to 0.05 parts per million of ozone gas. So our noses are really sensitive to the way it smells. So just because you're smelling it doesn't mean it's bad, but you will know if you're intaking too much. But what's happening is ozone technically is considered an irritant. And so our lung tissue is incredibly sensitive. And so that's the one part of the body that can cause a little bit of irritation if you get too much ozone into the lungs. And same with the eyes. The eyes are very sensitive. Now, I have phenomenal eye treatments that I do with ozone. What I do is I take ozone, I take saline, and I ozonate the saline, and then I actually put it in my eyes. It makes my eyes feel amazing. It does not burn. I use it recently for a sty that I had. And when I get a sty, it's like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and I'm just like miserable. And even like, if you get something over the counter, it doesn't really work very well. I hit it with ozone water like 5 times that day, and the next morning it was gone. And to me, that's like, it was awesome. Like, I was like, now I don't have to deal with that. And so game changer for me. But it's really about all these cool little hacks that you can do with ozone, just on your personal time that can make such a major benefit with your life. But yeah, ozone is not something you want to be breathing because it is considered an irritant. But everywhere else, your colon, your nasal passages, your mouth, your ears, all these places, your stomach, all these places are safe to use with ozone.
Yeah, and I learned that the firsthand. I had my daughter. I was doing ear insufflation for her, and we always recommend with the ear that you blow a fan away from the nose. And I mean, you only do it for 5 minutes, but I walked away from my daughter. She was, I don't know, 10 maybe at the time, and all of a sudden she started coughing like violently. She's super sensitive to the ozone, and fortunately, I had some. So when that happens, they say that the lungs don't have that strong antioxidant lining, and that's why the lung tissue is more sensitive. So gave her a very high dose of vitamin C. I had a powder vitamin C, 4 grams, and it instantly knocks it out, right? Because the vitamin C is an antioxidant, right? And so within seconds, that coughing goes away. But
Yeah.
so you can
And I
have
want people to understand also, like, even if you're coughing, you're fine. Like it goes away. Like I've inhaled like massive amounts of ozone before, and it didn't cause any negative side effects to me whatsoever. I've seen lots of people do it. I've talked to lots of people. It's one of those things where if it's a continuous thing over and over and over and over, that's where you could start to develop maybe some issues. But as long as you follow like basic instructions and don't go actively out of your way to like attempt to breathe it, you're going to be fine. Like it actually smells really nice. I love the way it smells. And like most of the people who I kind of have a funny theory I go by. So if you love the way ozone smells, chances are you're doing pretty good. If you hate the way ozone smells, chances are you probably need it. So that's the way I look at it. Because a lot of people that I talk to love the way it smells, and they say it smells like a fresh, like lightning storm or a fresh rainstorm. And to me, you can't beat it sometimes.
Yeah, I've given my daughter PTSD, so when she smells it, she gets all for it. No, but it's
That's funny.
amazing. She had got a staph infection on her leg from she had fallen, right, and had a little scab, and she picked at it, right. It became really swollen, kind of the infection. I knew if I took her to the doctors, they were just gonna, do antibiotics and steroids, and I was just
Mhm.
like, I don't want to do that. So we used Ozone olive oil. Took a little long, probably with the antibiotics and steroids, it would have knocked it out. But what we don't realize with those medications is we actually push those infections deeper down in the body, right?
You do.
So with the ozone, yes, it took maybe 10 days to be perfectly healed versus maybe 3 if she had medication. But I uprooted that whole entire infection. So it wasn't buried deeper into her system, for to rear its ugly head later on. Right. So, but most of the time, like you have a little infection, a little pimple or something. I mean, ozone, man, it knocks it out. Like you said, with the sty almost instantaneously. I mean, her whole leg was really swollen. So it was a bad infection, but still, I mean, it totally got rid of it. I had a spider bite one time. Same thing. I just used the ozonated olive oil. I injected a little bit of ozone. She wouldn't
Yeah.
let me inject her. So we used the olive oil plus the gas. She wouldn't let me do it. So she injected herself. I'm like, whatever, as long as you
Wow.
get it. So yeah. Yeah. So she's had,
It's a game changer. It really is. Like my dog I guess it was trying to get over the fence and it cut its neck a little bit. Didn't even realize it. And then like a couple days later, because it's, he couldn't see anything because of the hair. A couple days later, I was like, what is that awful smell? And so I noticed like a really bad smell coming from its neck. So obviously he had an infection. And so it's like late at night and I'm like, well, can't do anything at the moment except lather it with ozone oil. And the advantage with ozone oil, especially dealing with like pets and kids, is that oil doesn't wash away. It stays on that wound and it absorbs really well because it's oil. And like, I mean, I think it was a pretty bad infection because it stunk. And I cleaned up the wound, I lathered it on there. And then the next morning, the smell was gone. And then within another day, he was completely back to normal. And so I avoided having to take my dog to the vet. And, that's always a stressful event for pets as well. And it just like completely cleared it up faster than I even realized it was going to do it. It worked so much faster than I expected.
yeah, it's awesome. I absolutely love it. And like I said, everybody needs to have some of this in their first, and the ozone olive oil, I mean, if you've never seen it, it's thick, kind of like Vaseline,
It is.
And that, I mean, it can last, like a couple years right on your, on the counter, or if you put it in the fridge, right, it'll last even longer, 9,
Yep.
10 years in the refrigerator. So it's something I travel with it always, 'cause you never know what might happen on vacation. And,
Yep. That's correct.
like I said, better than the Neosporin. You're not going to get any antibiotic resistance from the ozone, and you're going to be able to knock out all sorts of organisms too. One other thing
That's correct.
so we do nasal insufflation, but when we do that, like if we're trying to get something into the lungs, right? Because that's where we get a lot of junk sometimes. We do go through olive oil, right? So we have in
Yeah.
these home machines, we have all these little glass vials, and you can put olive oil, and so you'll infuse the ozone right through. And then what I love that we use that maybe 3, 4 times, then you can use that body lotion even. So that'll be thinner, like consistency of typical
Yeah.
olive oil, but you've ozonated over a few times as you've done other treatment, and then you've created your own kind of home oil. It's not as strong for like a wound or something like that, but I tend to like to use that as a body lotion.
Yeah. No, it's really good. And so like, and that you do bring another amazing therapy. So for people who have respiratory issues, you can bubble ozone into an olive oil. What it does is the oil strips away the harshness of the ozone. So what's left over are terpenes and ozonides that are being released into the oxygen that you're then breathing. And so your body's breathing the terpenes and the ozonides, and that's how it's fighting off some of these respiratory issues. And so it smells really good, and there's no coughing whatsoever that happens. There's no distress when trying to breathe whatsoever. Smells really good. And it works great for people who have respiratory issues. I've had fantastic testimonials come in about that. There's a few other ways to also do it. A couple of ways that I've tried is I'll take ozonated saline and I'll add it to a nebulizer. And that actually works pretty well. There's no issues with breathing ozone or anything like that. It smells really nice. A new option that has just come out recently, I've tried it multiple times, is you create like a 10% dilution of ozonated glycerin to about 90%, distilled water or saline. And you can actually nebulize that through like a traditional nebulizer. And it works pretty good. I mean, no issues. I mean, I've seen a lot of people who've had respiratory issues. That's kind of a new thing. So we're still waiting for more feedback to come out. But there's really cool ways to get ozone into the body through the respiratory side.
And what about drinking it? I don't know by studies yet, or have they proven that if you drink it, like, can it kill stuff that's in your stomach and intestines, or what do you know about that?
Yeah. So this is my take on it. I think most people in the United States have, maybe it's minor, major, some form of small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Okay. So we call that SIBO. And I think it's quite prevalent and more people have it than not. And what's ozone doing when we drink it? It's traveling to the body. It's getting absorbed into the stomach. It's moving throughout the bloodstream as well. It's just not quite as effective as a rectal insulation because of the bioavailability, but we're essentially resetting our terrain again. And I think that's super important because people's bacterial guts are just, the bacteria in our guts are just completely out of whack. And it's not something where, people are, oh, I'm so worried about my good bacteria. I'm like, you should be worried about your bad bacteria because that's causing all the issues. So we need to do something about that. We need to eliminate the bad bacteria, allow your good bacteria to reset and repopulate. So I think when we talk about treating ozone, systemically throughout the body, it does have that ability to really help the terrain, balance you out, fix your bacterial issues. But at the same time, you as the individual also need to be prepared to continue that positivity by changing what you're eating. Maybe you have to get on a better, a better diet, maybe like a more SIBO friendly diet. That's the big thing that I really want to push is like, just because ozone works so well doesn't mean it's going to stick. Like you do have to put the work in, you do have to put the time and the energy to address the underlying issues that may have caused that and do things to prevent that from happening down the road. If you don't do that, you're not going to have the success outcome that you want with ozone.
And that's a huge point. I mean, why do we have most chronic disease today? It's our lifestyles, right? The environment, lifestyles. We didn't have all these chronic diseases a couple of generations ago, at least not to the same extent that we do now. Again,
It's getting worse.
That's, again, the super important thing about ozone that most people don't talk about. We know about its ability to kind of kill stuff. But again, that extra electron, that energy is the key to life. So, and you can make ozone water in about 8 minutes. Like, it's super easy to use. Yep. So maybe tell us about like your website, all the other products. If people are kind of interested in getting this, how do they find out more? You said you have videos too.
Yeah, we do. So we actually operate two websites. The first website we operate is promolife.com, and it specializes in ozone therapy equipment. We have equipment for home users. We have equipment for dental offices. We have pretty much anything that you want to do ozone. We have the tools to do that there. But our big takeaway is also service on that side, because this is a new therapy for a lot of people and we really need to teach them how to do it properly. So we have great videos, great instructions that come with it. And we also have, personalized consultations that we provide, customers who want to get into this, because we feel that if they have a positive outcome, they're way more likely to have a positive impact with telling people that it worked for them, versus if they had a bad experience, they're not likely to talk about it in a very positive manner. So we really want to encourage people, understanding how ozone therapy works and doing it the right way, because you will have success. The other website we offer is pureo3.com. And that website specializes solely in ozonated oil products. So we have things from deodorants, we have tooth and gum gels that we make for tooth health. We have beauty products for the face that contain ozone. We have ozonated olive oil. We have fungal products as well. We have a whole host of, we have ozone soap, ozonated oil soap on the website as well. So if you're into ozone and you want to, you want some type of ozone oil product, we have some of the best stuff on the market for people to get into. You'll be surprised how well a lot of this stuff works. It's amazing in my opinion.
My favorite new product is that tooth powder, the blue one.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. is like the most amazing. You just feel so unbelievably clean. I absolutely love that stuff. I bet you have been promoting that like to know
Yeah,
some
that's
of
a
the
great
other
product.
toothpaste that I use. Sometimes they're not gritty enough, to get up. But man, and not that that's even gritty at all. It's a very fine powder, but the ozone, it, like you said, it just cuts through that biofilm in 30 seconds, and man, your mouth smells amazing.
Yeah.
I love
We we're gonna start. We have another flavor coming out, so we're gonna do a cherry flavor for the kids. So
Well, that's it doesn't have that ozony taste at all. Like,
yeah, it doesn't.
again, like my daughter can't stand it. She smells it and she runs away, but that does not smell at all, but you still get the amazing power of it.
Exactly. And that's what we're shooting for, is we're shooting for very usable, user-friendly products on that website that treat very specific conditions, whether it's oral health, whether it's hygiene, whether it's fungal issues. And that's our goal, is to make fantastic products that work. And we're going to be coming out with more products in the very near future. So we've got a lot in the works right now, and it's just getting busier and busier and busier on that side. I love it. The home ozone therapy, the dental offices, the medical side, that's incredibly busy. We love it. And we're really just excited to really help drive ozone into more places and really get it more mainstream. And then also providing the usability and the access and the education.
Yeah. And you just said more places, which made me think, one thing we didn't mention is like you can use this vaginally too. So maybe
Okay.
doing chronic like UTIs or yeast infection.
Let me mention that really quick. So like I've had a lot of women who have tried it for like endometriosis issues. And the one thing that I noticed more than anything, I've talked to a lot of people that have had really good success with this. There's a lot of women out there who have like really heavy periods. And what we found is if you do 2 to 3 insufflations before your period, this is vaginal insufflations, your period heaviness has subsided dramatically. To me, it blows my mind how effective that is for that. And then not to mention, it can help with like endometriosis issues and stuff like that. So like to me, it's a game changer for women's health. We also, on the Puro 3 side, I forgot to mention, for like yeast infections, we sell ozone suppositories that can be used vaginally, and we see phenomenal success with those as well. It's a really, really easy treatment for women. And I just did a whole summit on menopause with women as well. And the big takeaway was what happens, when you're going through menopause is you're way more likely to get bacterial infections or UTIs and stuff like that. And so the big takeaway was doing vaginal insufflations using ozone suppositories, because if we can reduce the amount of infections that we get, because what typically happens is you get an infection, you get on antibiotics, and after time, it just wrecks your gut, and it just sets you up for getting those consistently over and over and over again. So if we can treat it with ozone before that happens, our likelihood of getting an infection drops dramatically, and then we don't have to take antibiotics. And so I'm not going to go as far as saying ozone fixes menopause, because it doesn't, but it assists on the aspect of controlling those infections that are more likely to happen, during that time of life.
Yeah, that's great. And for women who have the cramps, a lot of that is improper blood flow, right? So you're getting
Yes,
that ozone right in there. You're creating that nitric oxide. You're opening those blood vessels. You're making it a lot more comfortable. So I wanted to
that
make
is
sure
correct.
that, because again, and these therapies are so easy, and it takes less
They are,
than 5 minutes, right? So
and they're cheap. Once you have the stuff, there's like no cost involved. So
so true.
it's so easy.
Yeah, a lot of like I don't charge anymore for when I do ozone, because it's, yeah, I bought the big fancy machine at first, but I mean, you're buying little tiny syringes and there's just not much to it, right? And you're using, we make our
Exactly.
own distilled water at the office, and then you're just, you have an oxygen tank, but that's not too crazy either. So
Yeah.
now, speaking of that, one thing that sometimes can be tricky, they say you want to get medical grade oxygen. And if you're a
Yeah.
home user, what do you guys tell people who are buying their own units? How do they get that oxygen?
That's a good question. So there's obviously multiple options out there. So we have some people who are able to get a prescription, so that takes care of the medical oxygen side. The most common method out there, and as weird as this sounds, it's totally legit. A lot of people get welding oxygen. And if you look into like the welding oxygen, it's this exact same stuff. They fill it from the same lines. It's all USP grade. There's no difference. And so welding oxygen is amazing. We also have, a service that we provided is more expensive, just try to be transparent. we can ship filled tanks to people's doors. So we do have a service that we provide where we ship 99.999% pure oxygen for people to use. We just came out with a new product. I actually really like it. It's been a game. It's saved me as well. So oddly enough, you can buy little teeny cans of oxygen at Lowe's and Home Depot, and they're branded under the company Bernzomatic, and it's just oxygen. I've tested it. It's literally the same quality as medical and industrial oxygen. And we just came out with a regulator. You can't find them. We're like the only ones that have it. We had to get it custom made, but it screws onto those tanks and it allows you to use the low flow rates like you need to. And so what I do with that is that's my travel kit. Like you can't travel with a bottle of oxygen because you can't fly with it. So like if I'm flying, what I'll do is I'll get my regulator, my generator. I can take that on a plane, no problem. And then I get my car and I swing by a Lowe's or a Home Depot. I grab my oxygen tank and I'm good. I got my ozone if I need it. So to me, it's like it allows me to like travel and actually have ozone. That was like the biggest thing that I was unable to do for a while is like take my stuff with me because of the oxygen source. But we call it our travel system. You know, if you don't like the idea that it's Bernzomatic, that's fine. But it gives you the ability to travel and use ozone.
Fabulous. So tell us again, what are the two websites for people to go to?
The first website is promolife.com, promolife.com, and that specializes in ozone therapy equipment, basically all things ozone. We have great sales supports. You can schedule calls with us. You can, watch our videos. You'll learn about ozone. The other website is pureo3.com. And that'll take you to our ozone oil website. It's basically got tons of capsules, suppositories, hygiene products, topical products, beauty products. So a bunch of really cool stuff. And I think it'll blow your mind.
It's great stuff, guys. I've been using it for years and I could not practice the way I practice without ozone. Nor I loved it so much I bought a second one for my home because I was like, I can't drive
Awesome.
this back and forth. So, so anytime, we're getting sick or we have all these problems or like maintenance, you said the rectal insufflation a couple of times a week.
Yep.
You can't beat it. So, Tobias, thank you so much for taking your time today to explain to us a little bit about ozone, for making it accessible to all of us to have this amazing healing modality right at our fingertips. We'll put all those websites in the show notes for you guys too. And again, thank you so much. I hope everybody enjoyed this episode. Definitely check out those websites and we'll see you on the next show.
And hey, thank you so much, Dr. Carver. I really appreciate it.
Hello, I'm Dr. Rachaele Carver, a board-certified naturopathic biologic dentist and a certified health coach. Did you know that over 80% of the U.S. population has some form of gum disease? Many of us don't even know that we have this source of chronic infection and inflammation in our mouth that's been linked to serious consequences like heart disease, diabetes, stroke, dementia, colon cancer, kidney disease, even pregnancy complications. Would you like to learn how to reverse and prevent these chronic debilitating conditions without spending a lot of time and money at the dentist? Join me for my 6-week course where I will teach you the root cause of disease. You'll learn how to be your own best doctor. Are you ready to get started? Let's go.